So our next presentation is about Ohio ethics, and we are very lucky to have with us Susan Willeke. If you have not had the opportunity to hear Susan talk, you're in for a treat. She's probably going to scare you, though, I'm not going to lie. Susan is an accomplished government relations professional for more than 30 years experience in public affairs, communication, and public speaking. She joined the Ohio Ethics Commission in 2005 as the Education and Communications Manager, where she oversees approximately 200 speeches annually, develops information strategies regarding agency programs, and represents the Ohio Ethics Commission to Ohio citizens, the media, and the Ohio legislature. Turn it over to you. Thank you.
How many of you have had before in a class? Who's been with me in past years? Okay, so actually I got all kinds of new folks. This is exciting. Well, cool. I'm Susan Willeke with the Ohio Ethics Commission. It's my pleasure to be here today. I wish we had more time together today, because now that I know you're all new, there's a lot of really cool stuff under the Ohio Ethics Law that I know it can seem scary, especially when you consider kind of how it all began. As you can see by my little slide, every year I try to come up with a new theme, for my slides. Last year I had Shakespeare going on. The year before that I had this whole national park theme of, the ethics law, following the right path, that kind of thing. This year, after 20 years, I'm very quickly approaching having to do my interpretive dance of the Ohio Ethics Law, I will tell you. But this year it lent itself very well, because as you can see, the Ethics Commission is celebrating its 50th anniversary. If you were born in 1974, happy 50th birthday. You share your birthday with the Ohio Ethics Commission. So here's why I say, considering how it all began, I know it can seem kind of like a bummer, because in all fairness, we've been around for 50 years. What might have prompted ethics laws 50 years ago, right? Thank you. You guys can participate. Just shout them out when you know the answer, right? Watergate. Yes, absolutely. It really was very historic, right? A bummer, obviously. First time a U.S. president stepped down from the White House, of course. And so I know it kind of feels like it has this background in something very, a sad connotation, maybe even kind of negative. But I think that the good that came out of it is that it was the kind of the impetus of ethics laws. Now, if you're wondering if I can't do math, I grant you the ethics law itself was signed into law in 73. The Ethics Commission officially began operating the first of the year in 74. Now, especially since I have some new people, I will say this, a half an hour doesn't begin to give us enough time to go deep. So let me do this. Let me give you kind of the overview of why this law is so important, and then information about the areas of the law that you can get more information from us later. There's no way we're going to get through the whole law. So let me just say one thing quickly here about the law. This isn't just about catching the bad guys. In all fairness, I do believe there ought to be accountability under criminal law if somebody really does egregiously violate the public's trust. Make no mistake, this is not a civil law. This is not a practice, best professional practice. No, this is a criminal law in Ohio. So I grant you there is accountability. And we do have professional investigators on staff. We do work with local prosecutors. People have been convicted of crimes, etc. But I think the more foundational benefit and purpose of this law is the protections it provides to you and to me as people in public service, but more importantly, people who live in Ohio. As a taxpayer, as a citizen, I would argue you absolutely have the right to expect and demand that governments operate in certain ways, don't you? Forget where you work. I don't care if you're a public official. Just as a taxpayer, you have the right to know that every time your state or your county or your city or your public library or your public school district, that community college, whatever, every time they act, make decisions, move forward in this project, you have the right to know that what backed that decision wasn't the benefit of somebody who got to make the decision. You have the right to know it was, the impetus was, how did it in fact benefit the public? I did have a speech once I gave at a big conference. A guy came up to me afterwards, and he had the solution to all ethics problems in Ohio that we were not doing a good enough job implementing, he told me. So I said, okay, lay that on me, what is it? Here's what he said to me. He said, we simply need to get rid of those particular people in public service who have any personal bias. So in so keeping with that goal, you're all fired. But so am I. So is every human being walking the planet. If you think there's absolutely no room in your life for any bias, you've never been asked this question. Be honest. Raise your hand if you happen to be the person in the room with the most beautiful grandchildren in the whole wide world. Could I see who that? There you go. Right. Believe it or not, there are some biases we're okay with. If you tell me your grandchild is the most beautiful thing ever brought forth on planet Earth, my response to you is you're absolutely right. Statute doesn't say, because there are people and things in our life about which it might be tough to be objective, that you are somehow unfit to hold a public position. That's what the law says. The law says there will be those times in our years of public service when something's going to come up, especially for those of you that are required to live where you serve, right? Absolutely. You're going to have family members. You're going to have your outside business interests. You're going to have things that do come up from your private life that make an appearance at your place of public service. And that doesn't mean you're now required to step down. It just means there will be times when you step back. Okay? That if in fact I'm the mayor of the city of anywhere, Ohio, and my husband's trying to get a contract or a grant with the city, I don't have to quit my position. It just means I'm going to go, I'm out, right? Mic drop, I got to step back from all this. That's what the law requires because you have the right to know that's how government operates. True story, but thankfully this one didn't happen in Ohio. A state employee is convicted of, her job was to inspect daycare facilities, right? And there was an allegation, she was convicted. Here's the problem. Guess what she and her husband did for business in their private lives? 3 of them. Guess who was inspecting them? Does that hit anybody here a little bit viscerally? Do any of you fall into the category of, if you mess with me, I might be able to forgive you one day? If you mess with my children, I will hide your body in the trunk of my car and help the search party look for you. Anybody there, right? This law helps us. It protects us at such a foundational level that not only do you have the right to expect it, it's our honor to be able to comply with that and make government good in Ohio. So here's, again, I can't get through all the areas of the ethics law, but let me at least point out here some of what we can provide. Yes, I know your brain goes right to that third one, that investigation one. I understand that. You know, I got stuck in a traffic jam today too because of an accident, and I admit when I pass I'm like, hey, it's my turn to rubberneck, right? We all do that. We all kind of want to look for the scandal and the dirt and what happened. And while I still agree that it's good that there's criminal accountability, if somebody really is that rapacious, I want to point out more important those first 2 bullet points. We have these 2 sections of the Ethics Commission that are kind of the proactive ones. I am the manager of the education communications training. I do hundreds of speeches like this a year. I do webinars. I do e-courses. I have fact sheets. I have all kinds of mini e-courses. If you're a newly elected official, I got a little e-course just for that. I've got all kinds of fact sheets. I have dozens and dozens. It's not mandatory. Don't feel obligated or overwhelmed if you haven't looked at them all. It's a toolkit. It's there for you. It's free because we'd so much rather spend your tax dollars providing education and advice than having to investigate people later on, right? And then I especially want to highlight our 3 incredible advisory attorneys. Their job, I kid you not, every day, every business day of the year is to give free legal advice about the ethics law. I kid you not, free legal advice that when that day comes, when you think to yourself, I want to do the right thing, I'm just genuinely not sure what the right thing is to do in this scenario. That's what we're there for. That is not to dissuade you from having a relationship with your city law director. By all means, keep in touch with him or her. If I may speak on behalf of all attorneys for 1 minute, they would much rather have you come to them in advance and say, would this be a good idea, rather than doing damage control after. Any attorneys out there want to give a shout out to that, that line of thinking? Yeah, right? So that's what we're here for. I'm not saying you don't have to talk to your city law director, but in all fairness, this is our bailiwick. This is what we do. This is our area of expertise. And here's the good news. We've been opining on these issues for 5 decades. There's an awful lot that already exists. There's not a lot that's brand new under the sun. If you call us up and say, hey, Ethics Commission, am I allowed to hire my daughter to come work for me in the council office? That doesn't take deep legal research. We're gonna be like, oh, sure, we got lots of advisory pages. Here, what's your email address? Let me send you that to you. We'd be happy to talk you through that. There's so much that already exists that very often when you reach out to us, people assume with the state of Ohio, you're gonna need 6 months to get an answer back, right? Very often, you have the response in your email inbox before we even hang up the phone together. If you ever do truly want something in writing, you want your name, you want it in writing with our signature, that's totally cool. Just write us a letter. We still ask for a letter, and that the statute says we need an original signature. And also, in all fairness, if we're going to write you something that provides legal immunity, we have to have proof that we based our answer on these facts. Do you know what I mean? We can't go by he said, she said. Just send us a letter. We're going to respond in writing. If you follow the advice that the Ethics Commission provides to you, you have legal immunity. You cannot be charged with a crime, not just by us, by anybody. You cannot be sued in a civil court of law, and you cannot be removed from your public job or office for following our advice. They can challenge the advice, but we're the ones going to court to uphold it. You guys are safe under the ethics law, completely free right from the horse's mouth. Use that. We love being in the business of helping good people create good government. That's what we love. The investigation part, my goal has always been to put them out of business. They're wonderful. Our investigators are wonderful people, but my goal is let's make them the least busy area of the Ethics Commission because we're giving so much great advice and information. Now, in all fairness, I do believe there are people that we can't help like that. I mean, I think about the lady from, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the story out of Dixon, Illinois. If you ever want to read a good case of really bad decisions, over a 20-year period, she stole something like $40 million from the city of Dixon, Illinois. Do you believe an hour of ethics training might have helped her and gotten her on the right path? You know what I mean? So I feel like we're here for all of you. The bad guys don't want to listen to me anyway. Those of you that say, this matters to me, public service matters to me, and I'm one of those people, right? I have devoted my entire adult life. I started with the state of Ohio right after undergraduate school. I was 21 years old when I started with the state of Ohio. So, at least 15 years, right? The ethics lady's allowed to lie about her weight and her age. Those two things are exemptions under the ethics law, right? Yeah. And so my whole adult life has been devoted to public service, and I am a huge believer that public service, when done with integrity, is an honorable way to spend our time, our passion, and our interest. So this is how we would be thrilled to help you. Look, there's a lot on our website. Don't be overwhelmed. If you want to become friends with me, call me. I'll walk you through. We can spend time on the phone just walking through the website and showing you all that's out there. So this is the who we are. We talked about the why. Here's the what, right? Now, I will acknowledge right off the bat, there's even more than this. These are kind of the areas of the ethics law, honestly, where we get the most mileage. You know what I mean? Most of our investigations, most of the advisory questions that I get in speeches like this, these are those primary areas. And please believe me when I tell you, I got so much online on each of these areas. If you go to the Ethics Commission's website and you click on the education page, you can click on anything you want, but if you click on the education button, you're going to see these 6 bullet points, and then you can click on any one. Let's say you click on gifts. You are going to get, here's a list of the most commonly asked questions about gifts and answers, but then you're going to find links. Here's all relevant advisory opinions we've ever issued on gifts. Here's all relevant fact sheets. And fact sheets, I have a whole bunch. I have one fact sheet just about donations. I have one just about discounts. I have one about, can I buy the ticket to that thing? I have one about going to conferences. Again, my goal has been to create a toolkit that makes it easy for you to kind of navigate and understand what the law says. So let's just go through a few of these. We won't get through all of them, but let's get a few under some of the ones that are really common here. Oh, I got too far. This issue of conflicts of interest, don't be afraid of this phrase. It's very ominous sounding, isn't it? Conflicts of interest, dun, dun, dun. Conflicts of interest are normal. They happen all the time in public service. It's because you all have lives outside your public role. Does anybody here cease to exist or go poof into Genie's bottle at the end? I'm dating myself. So anybody who doesn't get any of my references from the 70s, just let me know, right? You all have families and your own business interests. And some of you, in addition to your public service, you work here, you own this company, you do consulting, you sell widgets, you serve on this nonprofit board, you have relatives there. Those are all normal parts of being a human being, and we carry those with us when we enter into public service. Please, by the way, don't be fooled into thinking this is only an onus on you as elected officials. The ethics law applies to all of us in public service. Hired, elected, appointed, full-time, part-time, management, non-management, union, non-union, state and local governments, all of us fall under the auspices of the Ohio Ethics Commission, ethics law too. And this idea that we have conflicts is just indicative of the fact that we exist outside our jobs. This, again, I referenced this already, is not an indication that you may not be able to hold a public job or a public office. It just means when something comes up, look at that phrase down here under my cassette tape, definite and direct. That's an important phrase when we're talking about conflicts. We would not say to a city council, so hang on, you guys are going to vote on the budget tonight, right? And there's money in the budget to pave roads in the city, right? Don't you all drive on the roads? You all have to recuse yourself. That's ridiculous. See, that would never be that broad. It's absurd. Contrast that with this story, true story, that I'm a city, it's not true that happened to me, but let's pretend that I'm the city council member, and we're going to vote on a very specific infrastructure package that improves the 4 blocks in downtown city of Anywhere, Ohio, and I own a restaurant that takes up a half a city block. This person's not a bad person. They didn't invite that conflict. They didn't invent it, but they're in a conflicted situation. And it doesn't mean something bad has happened. It just means they have to say, hey guys, this one singles me out a little more uniquely. I've talked talk to the law director and the ethics commission, so I'm going to step back from this. And by the way, when I talk about recusal or abstention or withdrawal, whatever word you want to use, I'm not just talking about the final step. Way too often I have elected officials say to me, well, Susan, I did have this conflict, this thing, so I did the right thing. I abstained from the vote. And I always say, good, it's good. Just out of curiosity, prior to the vote, did you participate in city council discussion? Yeah, sure. Did you weigh in with staff? Absolutely. Did your other council members know how you wanted it to turn out? I'm an open book, Susan. I gotta be honest, by the time they abstain from the vote, it's a moot point because they participated. Don't panic, but when something comes up that has sort of a unique, definite, and direct impact, they're singled out a little more, your family, your outside business colleagues, et cetera, or your own property value, your fiscal situation, just let us know, disclose it, and just ask for some advice. When in doubt, my father used to say, this doesn't apply to me too much in my line of work, my father used to say, you're gonna have 10,000 chances in your life to shut up. Don't miss any of them, right? Now somehow I missed that advice, but it was still good advice, right? I admit, right, kind of thing. So when these conflicts arise, don't panic. Use the resources that are available to you. The next one that I did want to spend a second or two on is this one. There isn't a statutory prohibition against all of us accepting every single thing under the sun. How many of you in your careers, public or private, how many of you have received or given out trinkety things that have a website on it, right? The mugs and the pens and the pencils and the Hershey Kisses. Nominal, de minimis, not substantial. We're not worried about those kinds of things. When we talk about once you've come into public service, the things that we should not be accepting, they cannot be from what we call improper sources. You and I are not allowed to solicit or accept substantial gifts, no dollar amount there defined, but substantial gifts from improper sources. All that word means is our vendors, the vendors to your city, the potential vendors, the people that your city regulates, people like somebody a matter of interest, like I really want to open my underwater basket weaving in your community, but I can't unless the zoning board approves my request for rezoning, right? That I have some sort of vested interest there. These are not saying they're bad people, that they're improper people. We're not suggesting all of your vendors or your whatever have improper motives. But what the law would say is that those folks would be improper sources of substantial gifts. And again, we're not talking about these kind of things, right? We're good with that. What we're talking about more is these kind of things. You heard of some of this stuff? I tried to use modern examples, but pull pictures from the 70s. So you still look at the AT or IT equipment, computers and laptops, expensive bottles of wine or whiskey or tickets to games or shows, home repair, appliances, jewelry, travel expenses, all these kind of things. Here's what I'm gonna ask you to do. I'm gonna go back to the 80s here again. Channel your inner Nancy Reagan and just say no. Okay, because here's what I will tell you. This, in my never to be humble opinion, is a really silly part of the ethics law to get busted under, because it's the easiest part to obey. Just vendors in your community, developers, companies that want things from you, they shouldn't be taking you guys to games. By the way, if you're a financial disclosure filer, do not kid yourself into thinking if you disclose that person's name on your form that you're off the hook. All you're doing is make it easier for us to prosecute you because you put in writing that you took the illegal gift. That disclosure, you know what that's for? That's for gifts that you accepted from people who were not improper sources. If a developer in your town who wants to build a big development says to you, I have an extra ticket to an OSU game, doesn't matter, filers and non-filers alike, we are all required to do this. Is that gift substantial? Oh yeah, that's worth more than a one-time little meal at Bob Evans. And is it from an improper source? Yeah, it's from a developer who wants things from our city. Then the answer to that is no, I can't take it. There's nothing to disclose. You shouldn't have anything to disclose. What that disclosure thing is for is when you say, who was it that wants to give me the ticket to the OSU game? Oh, it's my best friend from college who's an orthodontist 2 counties away who has absolutely nothing pending before our office or ours. See what I mean? That's what that's for. So in a nutshell, just don't be seduced by the nonsense that happens. I'm not trying to demonize the private sector. My husband's whole career has been in the finance industry and taking people to games and to, dinner. It's a normal part of his life. He left me a voicemail once that went like this. It started with a sigh. Hi, honey. I won't be home for dinner tonight after all. I have to take a client golfing this afternoon. Your heart bleeds for him just a little bit, doesn't it? Poor baby. I'm really sorry. I'll be in Centerville today while you're, right? Yeah. So it's all good in his world because he only interacts with the private sector people. If his life were ever to overlap with someone in public sector, all bets are off because the law says it'd be illegal for us to accept it and it'd be equally illegal for him to promise, offer, or give it. How are we doing so far? You okay? Concerns? Do I need to talk anybody off the ledge here so far? You're all running the scream for the door. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Not exactly concerned, but the community gets smaller and smaller. It gets harder to know where that line is of I'm disproportionately benefiting from it. You know, I took a note to like a specific thing on the right about it. But like,
Yeah.
do you have any like guidance you give to like smaller communities? Like, you know, I think most of us are representing kind of smaller communities, relatively speaking.
Yes. So we actually have several great opinions. We actually have one that we issued to the village of Athens, Ohio. By far, who's the largest employer in Athens? Not even a close second. So we said we understand that you may have village council members who are all working for the #1 employer. We get it. We're not saying that something's wrong there, but we actually did that kind of talked about that difference between general across the board stuff versus singling out, in that case, not just their family, but their business associate, their employer. So we do have that. If you look at the OU, if you type in OU on our search engine, you'll get that one. The other one, we issued it way back in 1989, but we've been sending it out a lot lately because of the Intel plant that's under construction, that we've had a lot of those. It doesn't mean somebody's done something wrong. This whole thing of, I serve on this council, or I'm on this zone. There's like numerous counties and cities all impacted because of all the changes going to happen in bigger school districts. There's a lot of that going on of, oh geez, I was supposed to vote on this, but I just found out yesterday at the family barbecue that my brother's been approached by the developer to buy that 50 acres. So this is happening, and it doesn't mean someone's committing a crime. It just means our ethics radar needs to be really engaged. So yes, check out our website. Do a little searching around the conflict. Go to the education page, search around that conflict of interest area, and let us know if you can't find what you're looking for. Anybody else? Are you guys doing okay? I've overwhelmed you all, haven't I? I know, I get it. The one other thing, there's so much out there. Let me give you our, I'm gonna go here just so we can look at this. I just want to say, how far will I go to take a theme to its fruition, right? It's amazing what you can get for 25 bucks on Amazon these days in the Halloween section. That way you have our access to our information. While I do clue you in on probably 2 of our most common violations in local governments. One of them is people selling things to their own public entity. If any of you own your own business, you co-own it, you sell widgets, you do consulting, you need to conclude right here, right now, that you will never be a vendor. I don't care if it's written, if it's casual, if it's formal, if it's informal. I don't care if it's once in a while on an as-needed basis. This whole thing of, I actually had a lady in the school board once say to me, if I had known I couldn't sell my wares to the school district, I wouldn't have bothered to run for school board. Thank you for your honesty, I guess, but also for your pure motives in running for public office, right? This is one of our 2 most common violations. Just assume right now that's not your reality, that you will never sell goods and services while you're serving at your city level. Does anybody know what the other most common violation is? Every darn year this one pops. I don't know if it was the most common last year, but is often, is the issue of nepotism in government. That is not a violation. For anybody panic. This does not mean it's a violation to have 2 people who are related to one another by blood or by marriage both working for the city. It's even happened before. You may be elected to public office and you have a relative that was already working there. That's not nepotism. The public hired you by electing you. But now you've got to watch out. Now you're going to be on the lookout. I cannot help my family member get specific raises or promotions. Again, if it's if you're voting on the budget that gives all employees a 3% raise across the board and impacts everybody, saying you're golden. If in fact your loved one is up for a promotion, there's disciplinary action, they're looking to create a new position, now all hands are off. If a loved one in your family says to you this summer at a barbecue, hey, how can I come work for your city? You know what you're going to say? You're going to say, oh, I'd be happy to show you the website where those jobs are posted. And that's it. That's the extent of your assistance. Because at the end of the day, I think nepotism is such an effective way of making sure the public doesn't trust anything else we do either. So with that, I know that's the quickest of overviews. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you. There's our phone number. You're welcome to call me directly if you want. If you want to, just add a 3 instead of the 0. But you very well might want to talk to an advisory attorney or investigator or our executive director or someone who drinks decaf, right? There's lots of people there that really want to be of assistance. And there is our website. If you go to our website, go under contacts, every manager, our email. We are not one of those agencies that are trying to hide. I hate, you ever been on a website where you have to like go 14 layers into the website before you get a phone number? No, right there, call us, email us. We'd be very thrilled. So 2 thank yous. 1, thank you for having me. And secondly, thank you for choosing public service. I said it already, I'll say it again. I believe public service, when done well, is really honorable, and it does make Ohio an even better place to live. So thank you for being part of that. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you.